Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this gorgeous blue orb, the Earth today. I'm going to be bringing an incredible human being to come and have a chat with you and me very, very shortly. This amazing human, Brooke Errol, founder and author and speaker, and a whole load of other things. But I'm not going to embarrass Brooke anymore. I'm just going to bring Brooke on. Hey, how are you doing, my dear friend?
Hi, Gary. Hi, everyone who's listening, who's watching. I'm good. It's morning, really nice weather after the storm in San Diego, so can't complain.
Oh, guess no one would listen, Brooke, anyway, even if you did. Let's be honest. Actually, I would listen. I would listen. So
Yes. Oh, thank you.
before we get going, because for anyone that has seen the setup of this, you wrote an amazing piece around corporate refugees, and you and I are going to have a two-way chat around that topic. So I think it's really, really important and a really powerful lens to look at the state of work today. So do you want to give us just a quick introduction to who Brooke is, and then give us a little seed? Where does that corporate refugees come from?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, yes, all my life, I think I have dedicated to making people happier at work because we spend so much time there and there's just too much suffering at work. So everything I do, like you have told in the introduction, like writing and speaking and consulting, coaching, everything really has to do with making sure that more people are using their strength, their values, their potential at work, because that's not happening still to this day, unfortunately. And that's where the corporate refugee word came to mind, because
Mhm.
what do refugees do? They want to, they don't want to actually leave their countries, but they feel like they have to for their well-being because they don't feel safe, right? There is some kind of risk that they're taking by staying in their
Mhm.
countries.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's their own country. Nobody wants to leave their home country unless there is something really appealing out there. So it made me feel like talking to a lot of clients, that's what a lot of people are doing. And I know we heard a lot about it during the pandemic, after the pandemic. People left their jobs, people called it
Mhm.
quiet quitting. I mean, so many words out there, right? But it is
Mhm.
really like they don't feel safe anymore. So they want to be a corporate refugee instead. So I think, like you, a couple of people really reacted in a certain way strongly to those two words. So let's explore it together, right? I know you
Mm.
can add a lot to this conversation. So it will be a two-way conversation, hopefully, because I want to hear all your observations in the corporate space too. I'm no longer there. I'm trying to help the corporations so that people do not become refugees, but
Mhm.
it's a long way still that we have to take, I think. What do you think?
Mm. I'll definitely give you some of my thoughts, Brooke. But before I go there, I'm just really curious. Bearing in mind you've been doing this work for quite a while now, I guess you're seeing the same or similar patterns that stop people being able to thrive and show up fully and feel like they're safe. What are two or three of those most common patterns that you observe within companies that make people feel like they have to be a refugee? And then I'll get involved in the conversation.
Sure. First of all, like people don't feel like someone, but feel like something, which makes a
Mm.
huge difference for us, right? Because I had jobs at the corporate space and I felt like I'm just like a little fish in the ocean. Nobody cares about what I do, what I want to do with my career, but it's like I have to do my daily tasks. So it didn't feel like very, like I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like
Mhm.
a human, but more like a machine, like something, not someone. And then I had a
Mm.
job again in a much smaller company where I felt like, oh my God, this is who I am. I can bring my whole self to work every single day, which was a completely different experience. And I know how much better I worked when I felt like myself, when I didn't have to hide that I'm a woman. I didn't have to wear a man's hat, which was, I was told that, by the way, in the first big company I worked for. Just brought my whole self in, and I had so much more different ideas that I could bring to the table. It felt very, very different. So I think that some companies are still missing that mark. They're not bringing any meaning to what people do. I was just talking to a nurse because I was in the hospital, and she doesn't see how much of a difference she makes in people's lives. And she's in the health industry. It should be the easiest thing to find meaning in what you do, right? And she doesn't feel that because they tell her, oh, you have to spend this many minutes with this patient. Then don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, she wants to get out of that place every day, being such a wonderful, kind nurse. I mean, the examples go forever, so I'm not going to go into even more, but just I think the very basic thing of making people feel like they're a human being, not a machine, is a starting point. Let's at least do that and care about them. I mean, we don't have to love our people, just like our great friend Bob Chapman says, but let's care about them, right? So, I mean, that's where I'm going to stop because, you know, there's 112 other things I can say about this. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, from my side, as you say, someone that works both within and outside of the corporate space today, I think it's such an important point because there's so much work going on around, you know, redesigning this or reimagining that, or let's try and shift this, you know, and that's all good. But if the foundation is a foundation of dehumanization, you know, you're building on a very toxic soil, right? If you think of it from a nature analogy, if you don't change the soil, you're putting plants into something that's going to kill that culture again, right? And I think this is something that's missing too often for me, is that there's not enough honest conversation around what is it like in, you know, what's it like in the soil, not what's it like when the tree in the canopy. It's nice in the canopy, you can see out, you can look out and around, you can see the birds, you can see the sky. But when you're actually in the weeds, literally and metaphorically doing the work, and if you feel dehumanized while you're doing that, that's a very, very toxic place. And I'm still astounded, Brooke, honestly, in 2023, after COVID, after everything we should have learned the last 10, 12 years, that we're reverting to type again. And I'm just wondering what do people need to experience, Brooke, in order to let go of that? Those stories.
I know. I had the same two things out of your conversation made me remember two things. One is like you used the word toxic soil, and I have a lot of clients right now, and the jobs that they got laid off from, they mostly use that word to describe the work environment. Oh, it was such a toxic environment. I don't want to go to another corporate place like that. Toxic is a very serious word, and that's the way they describe their workplaces, which is very sad, obviously. And the second thing, like you said, I was doing a podcast last week too, and again, I was asked, like, what do you think we learned from the pandemic? And you and I had so many conversations, and we saw that there's so many people who got saw the silver lining among all these horrible things that happened to people, obviously, but there were some silver linings. We learned that people can work at home. We learned that you can balance your life. You can spend more time with your loved ones and still bring in the results. And everybody saw that. Research, like numbers show that. But now, like you're saying, we're reverting back to what they call normal. Right? And it's not normal. And you and I wanted to see this sticks this time. We had gone through something very difficult, but there were some silver linings. Let's learn and keep those lessons. But unfortunately, I was telling the same thing last week too. Only maybe a little subset of people learned something out of it. Then the majority, again, okay, bring your people back to work 5 days a week. Of course, most people don't want that. Why would they? Because they already experience it can be done in a different way, where they can spend time for things that matters to them. Because unfortunately, for most of them, work doesn't matter besides only making a paycheck, which is the sad part for me. It should be more than a paycheck, right?
There's so much in that. The wonderful Shahana has popped along. I know it's late in Mumbai, so thanks for coming along, Shahana.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, toxic soil cannot support or nourish healthy lives. What a beauty. It's it's such a powerful statement, that, Shahana, because, and Shahana and Trina do this Hegemony Revealed show as well.
Yes. Uh-huh.
You know, and what I think, what we talk about there, what you and I are talking about here, Brooke,
It's the
this
same.
is really systemic, right? There's
Yes.
something going on in the macro systems that allow us to go through a collective meditation, which I love that phrase. I heard that from my systemic guide during the like, we were literally with different levels of privilege, different
Yes.
levels of comfort, but we went through a similar experience through COVID,
Yes.
no matter where we were in the world. And I
Yes.
think for the first time in generations, we felt something like empathy, no matter where we
Yes.
sat in the world. And it's
Yes.
almost this corporate refugee bit for me is like, I'm wondering, and I'm speaking for myself here, but also an inquiry for our chat today. I'm wondering if part of that feeling for people is they had an experience, they know it can be better. And the refugee is like, why have we gone from what we know can be better? We still had results. We were still delivering performance, but yet we're being literally pulled back into this old toxic, unnourishing world by a select few with power.
Yes. Yes. And why do you think so? Yeah. You tell us, like, why do you think they're going back to their normal? What's that?
Oh,
What's
what a
happening?
great,
Do you think?
God, Brooke, throwing it back. I love it. What a great question. As you said that, I had a bit of a reaction in my neck. And what's come up for me is, I think that for the first time, probably, because I've seen this in certain areas of my own organization and beyond, some of the leaders that do have power, they felt in their body during COVID, but they felt in their body without everybody looking. And now what's happening? People expect those leaders to still feel, care, connect, empathize, but they're now in the arena again, and they don't know how to deal with it because they've not been practicing what it's like to be a human leader every single time. You know, it's almost like there was a window behind closed doors in a square box on Zoom where they were able to be human. And now they're back in the inverted commas real world. I think they're in fear, Brooke. I think where I'm getting to, I think they're really, really scared. And I empathize. I think they're scared.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of looking at it. I didn't think about that, but yeah, you're probably mostly true. And I think they feel, especially publicly traded companies, they feel the pressure of doing what the shareholders need, what the boards ask them to do. And then when we do the work on ourselves too, we have this comfort zone, even if it doesn't serve us, right? So we have, all of us build these comfort zones as we grow up. And then it feels comfortable, even if it doesn't serve our future, our dreams, and everything. It's almost the same for them too, probably. Yes, they have lived this very different phase. Like you said, they felt it in their bodies, in their hearts, to be more human, have more empathy towards their people. But it didn't feel comfortable at some point, maybe, right? So they want to go back to where they know they exist in a much better state, or they feel like they can be themselves, although it's not their essence. But they're so used to being that controlling person or leader, they want to go back to the same. It just feels safe, even if it's not so great for them in the end. I don't know. That's how I see it. It's just so much easier to be controlling and who they were 3 years ago than to be that new person, because you and I know, like, being in circles where people love to transform, change themselves, pull their layers, it's not always as comfortable to go through that process. One part of your body wants to go back to, like, okay, I didn't like that, but it felt comfortable. Let me go back there. I don't know, maybe that's what's happening. I wish it didn't happen, but it is happening in front of our eyes.
Yes. I'm so grateful to you, Brooke, for having this conversation, and also for Shahana joining us, because this isn't an insight, this isn't an avenue that I've explored around this last couple of years. And I think this is the beauty of diversity, right? If we talk to different people that don't look like us, live in different parts of the world, we get these different opportunities to look through different lenses, you know? And we're doing that live together, which I think is such a beautiful thing.
Yes, thanks to you, of course. I love these conversations because, yeah, I want to hear, and I never thought from your perspective too. Yes, being out there in the open and now everybody's watching versus, oh, it felt good and I felt like a better person, but then how do I put that in the business space? It's still not so common to bring our humanity totally with their whole selves to work, unfortunately, especially in those levels. And I do empathize with them too. I do have compassion for them. They have to deal with so many different things that are hitting them all at once. But I think it's just feels like it's easier to be the old way for a lot of people, not only the top people who call people back to work, but for a lot of us. Yes, we got that glimpse of, oh my God. I mean, there was so many research that was going on. I think McKinsey's report was showing 70% of people reflected back on their lives and their purpose during the pandemic, because for the first time we had the time to do it. We're not
Yeah.
in that spinning wheel, right? So it was a big deal, but it is a lot of work. I do this individually with people, as you know. It is a lot of work. So it's so much easier. Oh, now we're back to normal. Let's forget about that. Let's go back. I think that's what people want to do. It's easier, I think.
It's such a potent point. I'd want to let's keep bringing Shahana in. Very generous to be staying with us. Look, they'd rather cling to the known self, even if it's not
Yes.
authentic. Letting go of that
Yes.
persona requires courage and vulnerability. Thank you, Shahana.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's 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 like I'm half emotional, half happy. Like just so when we think about what's going on in the world, you know, the wildfires all over the world, you know, biodiversity collapsing, environmentally, socially, like the big systemic challenges of our
Mm-hmm.
time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely believe what we're talking about right now, Brooke, is a key root cause solution. Not to fix, you
Yes.
know, one of many, but I do
Yes.
think that that unwillingness to stay in the discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
how do you as a career coach, as a consultant to organizations, how do you help leaders stay in that discomfort, Brooke? Are there ways? How do you create those spaces for leaders to stay in that discomfort somehow?
I think first of all, like it comes back to what you said. It is in privacy we can have those conversations, right? If you have it in front of a group, like in group settings, as you know, most people will not speak because it's too hard to be vulnerable. But when it's a one-to-one conversation and you create that safe space where there is confidentiality and then you can be yourself and you share some of your own stories being vulnerable. Yes, I've been there. Even like right now, I'm talking to so many people who have been laid off in this year in United States, right? And unless you bring it up and tell them, I know it's a roller coaster, it's so hard to be laid off, there's so many emotional pieces of it, they don't want to acknowledge or talk about it. But when I'm at the end of my whole like session with them after many, many calls, they say like, so, thank you so much for bringing that up. I would have never brought it up because I felt embarrassed. I feel shame of being laid off. They take it personal, right? So if you bring some of those commonalities of being human with a leader or with anybody that you talk to, it makes a huge difference. Or saying something like, I know it's so hard to be a leader of a company right now. There's so many things that are thrown at you that you have to solve, from the AI to technology to what's happening in the world. And like, and then it feels like hard. And we know it's very lonely at the top. If you acknowledge some of the emotions that they go through, there's a little bit of an opening there, right? And then to tell them each and every time you are not alone. I think that's the hardest thing for me to watch as I've been doing this for 20 plus years. People feel like they are the only ones who feel that way. And that way is always the heart. Like, okay, I'm the only one who feels embarrassed because I laid off. I'm the only CEO who feels alone, don't know what to do. I'm the only one. I mean, if you feel you're the only one and don't share it, it makes it so much bigger in you and you don't know how to resolve it. So I think that's the space.
Brooke, you're blowing my mind. You're blowing my mind. You always blow my mind, but you're really blowing my mind. So there's this, what I want to share with you, there's this work by Tema Oken. I don't know if you've heard their name before. Tema Oken done a lot of work around what's called
Yes.
supremacy culture patterns. So it's things
Yes.
like fear and defensiveness. And it's one of the big reasons why we have racial divide and
Yes.
inequity all over the world. And it comes, one of the patterns is I am the only one. That's one of the research patterns. But what I hadn't thought about until you just shared, I've always seen that as I'm the only one, I've got an ego, I believe I'm the only one that can solve the problem. However, you just gave me a different lens, which was,
Yes.
what if someone's sitting there going, I'm the only one that feels stuck. I'm the
Yes.
only one that feels unworthy.
Yes.
That's another way of that same pattern manifesting, isn't it?
True. Yeah. And this is the flip side of that, right? And it happens all
Fascinating.
the time. I sometimes feel like maybe I'm here on earth. I almost even tie everything to that because I just have something that happens to me each time I see someone who doesn't feel like they belong. So I almost feel like one of my missions in this world is to tell them you are never ever alone. Whatever you're feeling, somebody else or thousands or millions of people are feeling the same way, right? And it even happens with people who are corporate refugees who want to be leaving the corporate, but they feel like, and I felt the same way when I was leaving too. I mean, you must be crazy to leave a job like that on a really good company with the biggest brand names. You're making so much money. What's wrong with you? I'm I was I really felt that in my mind. What is wrong with you? Because everybody looks at you like you are the most spoiled brat in this world. You have this comfort and you got this privilege to work at the company and you are not happy. Are you crazy? But what can I do? I mean, inside of me, if you listen to inside of you, the answers are always there. I know I can't stand still there, right? So I think once in a while I feel that from you too, and you can please share your experience too. One part of you wants to do the right thing that we're all inherited as a good formula, right? Go to good jobs, get the good money because we all need the money. But then one part of you wants to pull you away. This is not right for you, Gary. This is not right for you, Brooke. And it just really depends on which one am I listening. And the one that I listen to is really the hardest one to follow because again comes back to that comfort zone. And thank you for our guest to say it in such a better way than I ever did and articulate it so well. It's so true. It's not your authentic self, but it's so much easier to be in the comfort zone.
I'm just going to share that again from a wonderful Shahana.
Yes.
Yeah, they'd rather cling to the known self, even though it's not authentic. Yeah,
Yes.
And also, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. I'm looking forward to meeting Thijs. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Amsterdam in a couple of weeks. So I have a question. How can we put them together, the culture, and make it more inclusive and shows that everyone has value wherever they're from?
Yes.
So it's a great question, and I'm really curious what your thoughts are on that, Brooke, and I'm happy to chip in as well. What's your initial thoughts?
First of all, I have many examples around the world. That's how I spent 2 years of my life, knowing that this is possible. Unless you feel it's possible, you're never trying anything. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of leaders are. But when you look at around the world, like I did for years and years, to see which companies are doing exactly that, they have the best culture, but of course, you have to be successful financially too. There are many examples around the world, from India to Turkey to United States, and I am trying to interview all of them as much as I can so that they tell their stories. It's not Brooke telling their stories. And of course, top of mind is always the one closest to my home, which is WD-40 with Gary Rich. He did this so well and proved that this is such a big possibility for every company. They're publicly traded because they always say, oh, private companies, so much easier to do. No, they are publicly traded. They got the best culture, but they spent a lot of time to figure out what they stand for as a company, their purpose, what are their values, what is their vision, And every decision from then on is based on this. It has to align with their purpose, their values. And then the whole culture is formed because of that. And then they create the business strategy. And like most companies do the opposite. They always come up with a business strategy based on who, what, I don't know. How can you build a business strategy without knowing where you want to go? I have no idea how they do it. That must be harder, I think. But then the only goal would be increasing profit. What else would you have as a business then? I don't know. Of course, making your clients happy and giving good service and everything, but they're all so spread out. But if you put it under an umbrella of why do we exist in this world as an organizations besides making profit, but then be true to that, it makes a huge difference, right? And like they have proved this for years and years and years with their numbers. They're doing financially very well, and they have the best engagement surveys that I have ever seen in my lifetime, year after year. 97% engagement. 97% of their employees say we are proud to work for WD-40, right? But then this is one example, but there is the Jaipur rugs in India. There is Latro chemical in Turkey. There is Vizi in Europe. I mean, there's so many other companies who are doing that, and some nameless ones that we don't get to hear every day. But that's definitely a possibility. Good leaders who sees the vision, who cares about people, and then they have a purpose, value, and vision that's very clear to everyone. And it's not only something you hang on the wall, you live it every single day. That's a big part of the formula. Coming back to what you said, Gary, you cannot build anything on a bad foundation. This is the really good foundation. And one more thing, then I'm going to switch it back to you. I know I have a lot to say in these topics, but I love what the British Academy always says about companies and organizations, saying like, let's solve people and planet problems profitably, but do not profit from causing even more problems to people and the planet. I love that, because we have to think about people and planet, whatever we do. So again, coming back to you, Gary, what do you think, or what would you say to that question?
I'm going to pop it back up again. Ties, just say thank you, Brooke. There we go. What I would add to this as well is there's a very common pattern. I'm going to give a personal anecdote and also just want to spot a pattern in what you just shared. A lot of the companies that you interview, right, the leaders of them, workers in them, they generally lean towards a more self-organized structure, a more self-managed structure. And that's a really important thing to add, Tice, into this conversation. Yes. Is if we want to develop and co-create cultures that will thrive and survive in line with nature's systems, that are equitable, that are just, that allow us to operate, as communities, really, which I know Shahana does a lot of work around, we have to decentralize power. If we do, this is why diversity, equity, inclusion is not working generally in most businesses. It's not because the content isn't good. It's not because the people aren't brilliant delivering the training. It's because the culture is based on centralized power. So when they leave the organization, everything goes back to normal up at the top. Whereas with Latro, with Doug Kirkpatrick's work, with WD-40, there's a much more of a self-managed, self-organized, decentralized approach to work. So I think that's another very critical lens.
Yes, thank you. That's
to add to that.
Yeah.
Back to my work. So as you know, I still work in the corporate space. I see myself as a bit of a corporate refugee, which is why you got my interest. But I'm a different type of corporate refugee, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this, Brooke. So I'm very lucky and privileged to work with some really good people. I've got a lot of space. I've got a lot of freedom. I've got a lot of ability to show up fully as Gary. However, that gets viewed by the centralized power structure through a very narrow lens. So that's why Gary's a corporate refugee in the day job, is because the 100% whole, fully inclusive, abundant, creative Gary, 99.8% of that can't be viewed through that one little box.
Yes.
And this is And that's the challenge I think a lot of businesses have is I
Yes.
talk about, Brooke, sales term now. Most leaders are leaving so much money on the table. They're already paying salaries, they're already paying for bonuses, they're paying for healthcare, they're paying for whatever. If you're in Europe, you're lucky to get healthcare as well. That's already being paid for. Yet most organizations are so busy being busy that they don't look for the whole potentiality of their people. They look for just the bit that gets the job done. And I think that's what leads to this corporate refugee status for me. So there are a couple of anecdotes from my side. Whatever's coming up for you, Brooke.
No, it's so true.
Are you on mute, my friend? I think you've fallen onto mute, I think.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, no.
What happened?
We've lost Brooke.
Let's see. Do you hear me now?
Oh, no, we can't hear Brooke.
Oh,
if anybody is watching us live, can you hear, if you can put in the comments, can you hear Gary? Is Brooke back?
Do you hear me?
Oh, no, we've lost Brooke all of a sudden.
What happened? Just a second.
Oh, dear. I wish I was good at lip reading, but no, we've... Oh, no. Oh, no. Can you hear me, Brooke? Yeah. How strange. It's just, try unmuting again, Brooke.
Let's try that again. Now?
Are you back?
No? You don't hear me?
No idea what's happening. No. How strange. We're now doing a nice a miming session for those that are watching.
I don't know what's happened.
Oh, is it my end? So I've got someone saying that they can hear both. Oh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is it something going on my end then?
Oh.
Oh, now I can't hear Brooke.
You can't? Okay.
Brooke, I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
But I think that we should take this as a universal invitation to come back.
Yes. Okay.
Although now I'm questioning if it's my end. How strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they can hear me then? They can hear me and you, but you can't.
Okay, I need to check out my end as well. Brooke, if you're up for it, I'd love for us to come back and do another round. It is on half an hour. Okay. I think we've got another good half an hour. What do you reckon? Should we go again?
Sure.
Shahana, thank you for letting us know. I think it might be Trina or someone else in the chat. I don't know. It could be my end. Brooke, I do not know what's going on because I can't hear you now. Okay. So maybe it's Gary Turner. But let's just call it a day organically here.
Thank you for everyone who's listening.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. I feel like we're just getting going.
I know.
But I've got a technology issue. So, Brooke, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahana. Thank you, Tyus.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone that's joined us. I can't see the other names, so I'm just going to go and check because I want to acknowledge human beings that are kindly joining us. What an amazing half an hour that just flew by. Trina, thank you for joining us, Trina. My goodness. All I can say is, why can't I hear you, Brooke?
Take me back to backstage. No.
I tell you what, I don't know. I'm going to jump out. I'm going to remove us both and remove us back in.
Yes.
Speak, Brooke. Speak, speak, speak.
Does it work now?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Shahana says yes, but I can't hear Brooke. What a weird situation.
I know. I know.
Do you know something? We need to improvise here.
Yes. Okay.
I feel like ringing you on WhatsApp so I can ask you questions.
Sure, go ahead. It's okay.
Right, let's call it a day. Shahana, Trina,
thank you
all for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to do this again. It's your end, Gary. See, Shahana says it's my end. So I don't know how to fix.
Okay, that's okay. Another day.
How weird.
Okay.
Right.
It's okay. Okay, bye-bye.
I'll tell you what. While I try and work this out, I want to bring Gary. It's you. I love it. I love it. It's your end, Gary. This
Thank
is
you.
so weird.
I know things happen.
I'm
I don't
feeling all
know.
creative now. If people can hear you, Brooke, you've got amazing insights. People are still here. Do you want to sing a song? You can carry on.
No, it's okay.
We'll
Let's
come
do
back.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
Everyone,
Okay.
thank you. We'll come back. We'll see you soon. Brooke, you're amazing.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.